Hey everybody, it's Mike Peasall, pastor at Gateway Christian Center here in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. It's a little cool this morning, but it sure is sunny and beautiful outside. Today is Wednesday, March the 27th, and this is Mike's midweek message. Still no twins yet. We're still waiting patiently for our two granddaughters to be born, and we're looking forward to that. I'm sure you'll know when that happens. It'll be all over Facebook. Today's topic is the relationship between fear and pride. Now, I had never thought about this until the other day. I was reading a devotional, and it was talking a little bit about fear and about pride, and it said something I'd never really thought about, and that was that fear and pride have something pretty important in common. And that is what we do with God in those situations. So let me give you an example. In 2 Timothy 1, 6 and 7, it says this: "For this reason I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God gives us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." So God gives us not a spirit of fear. So there's a difference between fear and a healthy appreciation for something. You walk out of your yard, you walk out in your yard, and you see a snake. You want to give it distance, not out of fear, but just out of healthy boundaries or respect for that thing. There's nothing wrong with being cautious about something, but when it straps you to the point where you can't function because you're so afraid, and it really, when you stop and think about it, you're like, this is not logical. So we're not supposed to have the spirit of fear as believers in Jesus Christ. My message Sunday is going to be about the same power that rose Jesus from the grave lives inside of us. So you want to come and tune in on Sunday to catch that. But my bigger point today is that fear is basically not trusting that God can do what he is able to do. It's not trusting him to do what he will do. And so our fear has a relationship with God. And the relationship is we just don't trust God to take care of us. We're in fear because we don't really believe that God is going to take care of this thing. He's not going to deliver us. He's not going to provide for us. He's not going to defend us. And so all those things, when we take God out of our equation, fear is what we have left. Okay. But, of course we know, the other side of this is the pride factor. Proverbs 16:18, we all know this: pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Pride goes before the fall. 1 John, though, if we go into the New Testament, 1 John 2:15 through 17 says, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eye and the pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world." Okay, so fleshly desires and improper things. The writer here, 1 John is saying all of those things are the same as pride. Pride is just as bad as those other things. Well, why is that? And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever. So what pride does is pride forgets that God is the reason you are where you are. Pride doesn't give God any credit for what has been accomplished and done in your life and in my life. And so where fear takes God's ability out of it, pride takes God's productivity out of it. We take God out of the equation. We think we got here on our own. Look at me. I'm everything and a bag of chips kind of thing. So Paul writes to the believers in Corinth a pretty long. The passage is what it is, but it's unusual for me to read this much scripture. But I want to read to you from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, because this kind of sums up so much of both fear and pride and how we are to walk in newness in Jesus Christ. So here we go. 2 Corinthians 10, 1 through 18. I, Paul, myself entreat you by the meekness and gentleness of Christ, I who am humble when face to face with you, but bold toward you when I'm away. There's that. He's not boastful. He's not arrogant. He's not proud. He's not puffed up. And that could have been very easy for Paul to do. Probably was at one point, but he's very humble. I beg of you that when I'm present, I may not have to show boldness with such confidence as I count on showing against some who suspect us of walking according to the flesh. There is a time for boldness, absolutely. For Paul, the time of boldness was when he was standing against those people who were saying, this isn't the gospel, that Jesus wasn't the Messiah, but he had to be bold about that. Or, okay, it's Jesus and these other things. Verse 3, for though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ. We take both the fear thoughts and the pride thoughts, we take them captive. We control them. We don't let them control us. Look at what is before your eyes. If anyone is confident that he is Christ, let him remind himself that just as he is Christ, so also are we. For even if I boast a little too much of our authority, that is possible to do sometime, which the Lord gave for building you up and not for destroying you, I will not be ashamed. I do not want to appear to be frightening you with my letters. For they say his letters are weighty and strong, but his bodily presence is weak and his speech is of no account. These were the social media critics of Paul's day, right? Let such a person understand that we say by letter when absent, but we do when present. In other words, what Paul has said in all of his letters, he lives that out. He practices what he preaches. Literally, he practices what he preaches. Verse 12. Not that we dare to classify or compare ourselves with some of those who are commending themselves, but when they measure themselves by one another and compare themselves with one another, they are without understanding. But we will not boast beyond limits, but will boast only with regard to the area of influence God assigned to us to reach even to you. God has assigned us a territory, and we are to be bold in that territory. For we are not overextending ourselves as though we did not reach you, for we were the first to come all the way to you with the gospel of Christ. Now he's meaning in a regional way, in a distance way, but he's also talking about coming across cultures, and he's talking about coming across the religious boundaries of the day. Verse 15, we do not boast beyond limit in the labors of others, but our hope is that as your faith increases, our area of influence among you may be greatly enlarged, so that we may preach the gospel in lands beyond you without boasting of work already done in another's area of influence. Let the one who boast in the Lord. For it is not the one who commends himself who is approved, but the one whom the Lord commends. So I just want to encourage you, if you're right now in a situation and you can continually have you're overcome with fear to the point where it just kind of stops you in your tracks. Well, remember, the God you serve, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. God is not the one who he just barely gets me over the hump. God picks us up and lifts us to wherever. God has more power in one little portion of him than all the world combined. So God is not just kind of powerful. He is all powerful. So when you're fearful, trust him, go to him. And then when you have that temptation to be proud, because you've accomplished something, you know, we always want our children to grow up to be proud of what they do and proud of what they, you know, how their projects and their whatever it is. We want them to be proud, but we don't want them to have a spirit of pride, which is a spirit that says, I got myself here. It wasn't God. It's when we go absolutely everything that I have, every talent I have, every gift I have, every ability I have, every possession I have is only because God has allowed me to have it. Every breath we breathe comes straight from the throne of God. I hope you have an incredible Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, and I will see you in April.